So eventually what happens is that the government is the most successful group of gangsters.
So, Jake, why don't you start out by giving us a little bit of a background of your personal upbringing and what has brought you to where you are today?
Oh, excellent. I was born and raised in Abrams, Wisconsin. Back before we had all these gadgets and widgets and technology, we still played in the woods for hours. I mean, my parents would come home from work and none of us kids would be there, but they knew we were somewhere on the property. And we were playing in the wood. I mean, it was
the golden era.
It was the last generation to grow up without a cell phone.
Yeah.
And we enjoyed all the cartoons, you know, Bugs Bunny, Pepe Le Pew, that's been recently canceled. But,
oh, God.
We had the Mr. Potato Head and all that good stuff, but it really was a good childhood. It was a simple childhood. Both my parents worked really, really hard, and watching my parents work as hard as they did showed me how much work you have to actually put in life to actually be successful. If it wasn't watching them work hard as they did, and they didn't have the best jobs in the world, but they were dedicated to raising us boys and ensuring that we had a better future and a better life than what they did when we became adults. And that's all that we really can do as parents. And I hope I can be able to provide the same for my child. But
Exactly.
Great little town, Abrams, Wisconsin, a small little town. We did produce Abrams, a professional baseball player, Bob Wickman, once upon a time. Not entirely sure who we played for, but we used to go to the Abrams General Store once a year and bring a baseball, and Bob Wickman would sign it at the little Abrams General Store.
That's awesome.
3 rows worth of groceries. But it was great. I graduated from O'Connell Falls, big class of 2002, and spent a lot of those years hanging out in the Michigan Forest, the public woods that was out there, 4-wheeling, snowmobiling, ice fishing, skipping school like we thought we were cool.
Good old American.
Yeah, I mean, it was exactly. I mean, we went to Friday night football games and Saturday night bonfires. It was really it was a good childhood. Then it was actually senior year of high school is when September 11th happened.
Right.
And by that point in time, I was actually already enlisted in the Wisconsin Army National Guard. I actually signed up when I was 17, and I had a whole year in the National Guard, 360 days before I shipped off to basic training.
What had convinced you to join the National Guard at 17?
I always knew I wanted to be in the Army. I mean, even when I was young, we were playing Capture the Flag. It was just something I felt it was part of what I needed to do in life.
Right.
And it just finally came to the opportunity, and I'll never forget it, because I called all the recruiters. We had recruiters from the Marines and the Coast Guard, the Navy, Air Force, all of them. It was my first adult decision. So I mean, I wanted to make sure to prove to my parents I was making an educated decision. I talked with all the recruiters and had them all come sit at my own kitchen table. And I originally wanted to be a heavy equipment operator, because I thought, you know what? Be a heavy equipment operator, learn how to drive bulldozers and do all this stuff. It's a skill set that I can transfer over to the civilian side. And my dad looks over at me and he goes, Jake, why don't you pick something that you can't do on the civilian side? I said, you know what? It kind of makes sense. So I looked over at the recruiter and I was like, well, what do you got? He pulls up a picture of a Humvee with a tow missile mounted on top of it. And he goes, we're getting ready to start doing this up in Marinette. Sign me up. And the rest was history. And it was during that point in time, the state of Wisconsin was actually transitioning from an armored division, which had tanks, to an infantry division. So it was a pretty drastic change.
Yeah.
And that's huge. And a lot of those old time tankers, they did not make it much longer in the infantry world. Rucking stuff around, that was not their
God, no, I couldn't imagine. You've told me some of the things about your infantry experience.
Oh,
I couldn't imagine. can imagine people who are used to being tankers.
There's a damn good reason why my knees hurt. I mean,
yeah, right.
There's legitimate reasons for that, and according to the VA, it's definitely not service connected.
Oh yeah, according to the VA.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was actually me. It was me, a guy named Dan McCauley, and Brian Adelmeyer. We were actually the first 3 guys out of the state of Wisconsin to ever go down to Fort Benning, Georgia, to the infantry school. And I will never forget the state of Wisconsin was awful excited to finally have some soldiers going down to the infantry school. So about halfway through the training, when we were transitioning from basic training to your AIT portion, which is your advanced initial training, one of the generals came down and wanted to check on his troops. And as we were eating chow, we just heard the drill sergeant scream out, "Oh, you fucking cheeseheads, get your asses over here right now." And we look at each other going, he wasn't talking about us. Well, he barked it out again. Sure enough, it was talking about us. The general came around the corner, and we were in the front lean and rest position, getting ready to do push-ups. Those drill sergeants smoked the shit out of us after that. But to tell you what, the camaraderie of going through Army Infantry School was something else that I'll never forget. That last ruck march, the road march to death, where we rode up the Stairway to Heaven, they called it in Georgia. It was a steep hill. You got your 40-pound ruck, and that was almost a 24-hour excursion. So by the time we rolled into the ceremony grounds and drank the grog, which was, I don't know how much crap they jumped into that. There was probably 30 different types of soda and punch and just shit, I don't know. Yeah. Back in the day, I'm sure it was filled with alcohol, but none of us were at the time, so they couldn't put any booze in it. Yeah. Although times have changed a little bit, even by the time I got in there. But
yeah, right.
It was some real good times. And then after
do they call that WAP?
Yeah. I think WAP sounds like has a little different acronym now with Cardi B, doesn't it?
Well, right. Where's Ben Shapiro? Where you need him?
Right.
Oh, he really. I listen to Ben Shapiro quite a bit. He brings that up almost every episode.
Oh my! Of course,
absolutely hilarious. He goes, "Mr. Potato Head isn't acceptable anymore, but we've got WAP." I mean,
yeah. I mean, I will say this. There's a lot of, on that point, because I do like to try to at least make sure people have correct information. There's a lot of misinformation about the difference between actual cancel culture and not actual cancel culture. With Mr. Potato Head and Dr. Seuss recently, that's actually not examples of real cancel culture. There was not a big public outcry. There were not a lot of people pushing these companies to do these things. The companies themselves just made these individual decisions to change their overall marketing schemes. With Mr. Potato Head, they've already been packaging Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head in the same box for years, and they just call it Mr. Potato Head, but it's implied that Mrs. Potato Head is part of the package. So now it's just calling it the Potato Heads, and now there's Mr. and Mrs., and now they're committed to making more parts that make it more ubiquitous, so it isn't as clear, Yeah. And then with Dr. Seuss, these were 6 books that were the least selling books of their entire collection. They did have some fairly inappropriate material for children. Now, I'm not saying as far as like adults go, adults should be able to consume whatever they want to, but as far as kids go, these were fairly inappropriate books for kids. And the publisher themselves did not say they're going to pull the books. They actually have decided to choose different illustrators, and they're going to re-illustrate the books and re-release them.
Good.
So it's the same book, it's just different illustrations. You know what I mean? Like, and those are areas where I'm like, I 100% in no way, shape, or form will applaud cancel culture, but I do applaud free market economics. And these are 2 examples of free market economics where a company decides, guess what? I want to kind of get with the times, and I want to make a decision that aligns with, with what where the market's at, and then they make that decision. You know,
I'm glad that's the path that's been taken versus cancel culture.
Exactly, because I hate cancel culture. I think it's a poison to our society when a group of people can get together and just decide now that a company has to cancel what they do because they don't like it. That gets really dangerous. You know, I mean, it's gotten to the point where
very much
so many different things on so many different scales are just like you said earlier, Pepe Le Pew. You know, that's one area where that is an example of cancel culture. A lot of Disney's are actually, because Disney bends very easily anytime that this cancel culture bubbles up. Disney's like, okay, yes, I'll do whatever you want. And now it's gotten to the point now where they're willing to literally throw any of their characters to the wolves, you know, and that's sick.
And the thing specifically with Pepe Le Pew, that was supposed to be an example of what not to do.
Exactly. He was repulsive.
It was exactly. Absolutely.
He literally never got the girl.
That was literally the entire message of that character. Is this is what you do not do. So kids could literally see an example of what not to do.
Yes, it was not supposed to be exemplified.
No, it was supposed. I'm glad to hear that there was this free market has taken over as far as the potato head and that.
And I know that, like, you know, they're the most recent, you know, kind of like hot button issues. And I think really what's happening right now is we're seeing a reverse of what happened after Trump got elected. After Trump got elected, you had the left looking for every single little thing that the right was doing and just calling even if it wasn't something to be called out, they were calling it out. And now you have the right doing the exact same thing. Now that Biden's been elected, now every single little thing that happens is Biden's fault. Every single little thing is the left canceling this. Every single thing is politicized now. You know, and it's
exhausting.
It's exhausting. Exactly. I try not to even pay attention to it because.
Well, it's difficult. I mean, and that's the thing. Americans are getting pretty damn tired of politics and their politics.
Yeah, they are. Isn't that funny?
It comes down to it. Nothing's getting done. I mean, we're arguing back and forth, and the only time something does get done is when you can vote straight party lines.
Yep.
This entire spending package was nothing. Every Republican voted no, and every Democrat voted yes.
Yep.
That's what it's going to be for the next 2 years.
Yep.
Period. I mean,
and it could be longer, to be honest, because if the left continues to push through a lot of these wish list bills that they're doing right now, they're going to convince a lot of people to keep voting Democrat.
Yeah.
Because they're going to,
if they keep
handing out that money.
They keep handing out that money.
It's like a slow trickle to socialism. Like
it is. It 100% is a slow trickle. And I mean, we've already had corporate socialism. We've already had socialism, but it's like a people's socialism now that they're kind of easing into, you know?
Yeah. Well, they needed it. They needed the people to go through absolute strife and turmoil and chaos and hurt and
to demand it.
Just so that they could be the Band-Aid to their problems.
Well, yeah. I mean, even look at like people like us. Because the government takes so much from us all year long through our taxes, we're actually excited to get the stimulus. You know, now that they're giving, you know, the overlords have decided to give us some of the money from the future bill. You know, like, but like, you know, we can use it for all these different things in our life. We're excited because they take so much from us. We were talking before with the podcast. If they just stopped taking our money all year round, it would be more than $1,500 per person.
Right.
That most of us would get
in just payroll tax.
Yes, exactly. And that's just payroll.
And then you would be able to update your life and grow and prosper and everything in all the different ways that you want to naturally, instead of like waiting for tax time, waiting for that stimulus
the handouts
bill, waiting.
Waiting and you wouldn't need handouts.
I almost coffee out the other morning because the Washington Post, the title of one of the articles that they posted, it said Biden stimulus showers money on Americans, cutting poverty and favoring individuals over businesses. How out of tune with reality do you have to be to believe that $1,400 cuts poverty?
Especially $1.9 trillion. So let's say we do $1,400 times what? 300 million, right? That's roughly the So that is $420 billion. If that was 1,400, and that's not even every single person that's going to receive it, because they already decided that anybody over 80,000 per person, or what is it, 160,000 per couple, doesn't receive it. So that will cut, I mean, a substantial amount of that 300 million people. So, I mean, even at the top level, you're still only looking at 420 billion out of $1.9 trillion.
Yep. I think
that's not even a third.
Best. I know. Spike Cohen said it best. If they had simply given all of the money directly to the COVID stimulus bills to every single American, they would have gotten about $20,000 each, including kids.
Wow.
Now think about that. So we got a family of 3. That would have been 60 grand.
Yeah.
60. If I could put 60 grand onto my mortgage right now,
Yeah.
You could literally buy a house for that.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's 80,000 for our family because we share one of our household, but $80,000 would literally change our life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the 1,400 is going to, the 1,400's like, oh, wow, we have a little bit of a savings for the first time ever.
Yeah. Woohoo. Yeah.
80,000's like, moving on up.
Jump around.
Yes, exactly.
Jump around. Jump up,
Exactly.
and get down.
Yeah, like 1,400. The stimulus package, we can now afford propane for the greenhouse.
Yes.
I mean, with the cost of propane that just jumped up.
Okay, you were telling me about that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So happy we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
My heart sunk because we budget everything. We save money from the prior year. We stash it away because what we don't want to do is borrow money to have our startup costs for the farm.
Yeah.
Right.
So all winter long, I still work a job and still have farm chores to do on top of that. I'm training to be a crop insurance adjuster on top of that, so that job fits better in with the farm schedule. So, thinking future long term here, what do I want to do after I'm done in Congress and stuff like that? Because that's not going to be a forever deal.
No, it should never be.
It shouldn't be.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I want to have, and I've always said yes to new adventures, even if they were slightly,
outside of your norm
on the legal side, but side, but it's always a good time.
Yeah, right.
We never hurt anybody, we never damaged property, but
dreams come a size too large so that you can grow into them.
Exactly. You always got to shoot for the moon. Even if you fail, you're still up among the stars.
That's true. Right. I love that
quote. Exactly. That quote has gotten me really where I am today. So I mean, we were even looking at buying a farm, and I was actually in college, working full time at Bay Ship and taking 9 credits at UWGB because I'm not fond of sitting around and twiddling thumbs and getting wrapped into TV shows. So I like to do stuff and be very busy. And one of the classes we were taking was an environmental science class, and the first assignment was to go 2 weeks without eating or drinking anything that had corn in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet that was really hard. I bet that was almost impossible.
It was surprisingly difficult.
Yeah.
So for the first time in my life, I was actually sitting down and studying the product labels and all the stuff that went into making our foods and stuff that we were eating, and corns and everything.
Yeah.
Especially the starch of corn.
Yeah.
Oh,
and the sugars of corn.
Corn starch, the sugars. So now, what do we feed to pigs and to cows to fatten them up?
Yeah.
Corn. I mean, that's what it is. And we actually, when we grew pigs last year, we fed them a lot of extra of our produce. So we were able to grow, and the magic number for growing pigs and butchering pigs is 250.
Okay.
When you're feeding your pigs corn and the crushed soybean and the minerals and stuff like that, they get really fatty once you get past 250. They're not putting on any muscle mass, they're just fat. So now the customer's not going to want to buy.
Sure.
Some fat is good, but you can have pork chops that are too
You
fatty.
want it to be marbled, but not to be excessively
marbled,
fat.
but you don't want it too fatty. So when you're feeding your pigs, exactly. So when you're feeding your pigs just the corn and the crushed soybean and stuff, once they get to 250, they start packing a But if you're feeding them a bunch of leftover produce, they get up to 300 pounds and they're still good and muscular, not fatty.
Hey.
So we had some massive pork chops. We had the hams cut in half, and I still can't fit them in a crock pot. But I mean, it's a good problem to have, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hell yeah.
it was.
You gotta get yourself another crock pot.
Yeah.
Get 2 of them.
Yeah, get a bigger crock pot.
Right. Big one.
So we're looking at all these product labels, and we made the decision to start looking for a little piece of property just to start growing our own food.
Mm-hmm.
And we were living in Kewanee, and I was working in Sturgeon Bay, and every day I drove past these 2 greenhouses out here, and there was a for sale sign out there. But the whole rest of the farm was kind of blocked by the trees, so I thought it was just the greenhouses were for sale. And I called the realtor to get a price on the greenhouses, and she tells me the greenhouses were $325,000. And I was like, holy shit. Greenhouses are a little pricier than I anticipated.
Yeah,
no,
right.
It's an entire farm. I said, no. She goes, would you like to look at it? Sure, why not? Let's go take a peek. You busy Friday? And it was a Black Friday. And I got home and talked to Emily, my wife, who, bless her heart, she's been putting up with me for a lot of years in these wild adventures. And I told her we're going to go look at a piece of property next Friday. And she goes, I didn't know we were looking for one. Neither did I, but we have no plans, so let's go check it out.
That's how the best things in life happen.
And that's what it was. It was me, her, and her dad, and we walked the property. And we immediately fell in love with it, and we saw the potential of the property, where it was at. It was already an existing establishment. It was already an existing farm. It already had, the greenhouses were up. They left all the planting trays were still here. A bunch of the equipment. They had a walk-in cool. I mean, they left a bunch of stuff here for us.
Mm-hmm.
They're critical equipment that we had to be successful. They made sure to sell to us. I mean, the transition was, and they were very, very passionate about making sure that somebody was going to pick up where they left off. They didn't want to, because they actually had a higher offer than what we had when we were getting ready to sign the papers. But this was from some people from Chicago that just wanted it as a vacation home.
Oh.
And to divvy up some of the back part of the 40 and stuff like that, and some other commercial.
And their passion was in the farm.
Their passion was in the farm.
They
awesome.
they did a lot,
It's still, they still have a passion for the food and growing the food.
Mm-hmm.
It's
then they handed it off to good people.
Yes,
exactly. We're hoping that we'll be able to live onto the very high standard they had set. I mean, they were a very well established farm, and hopefully we're filling the shoes for them, because it's great. We are still learning. We're under our 4th season here, and we're on track to have a record year yet again, except for our 2nd year. Our 2nd year was really, really bad. That one was rough.
Yeah, I'm sure with farming it's kind of unpredictable though. Yeah.
And that's what it was. I mean, with the first year we got stuff planted, and there's so much to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And not only is there a lot to learn with growing, there's a lot to learn as to customer preferences.
Mm-hmm.
So last year I had 400 feet of basil in the ground and sold like 20 plants. That was it.
Sure.
A lot of time and effort going into growing a whole bunch of basil that is still sitting out there right now, and it went to waste.
Yeah.
Right.
The fertilizing techniques. I mean, the fertilizer stuff that we use it's an organic fertilizer. It's pelletized or dried out chicken shit.
Yeah, right.
It stinks, but the cycles to go in there. There's the feed rates going through your drip tape, and how many the volume of your drip tape. There's so much that goes into it that I never saw, and nobody ever does.
Yep.
It's a challenge, not only physically, but it's a challenge mentally, which fits who I am as a person.
Especially if you do it right, like you and I are kind of on the same page. When you do something, you don't do it half-assed. You're gonna have to put everything you are into it. And like we used to garden, out in the woods, we garden more than we did here, and we understand like a lot of the plants. And I mean, we never did animals, but a lot of the plants, especially, to grow them right and to get the best yield, you have to be. They're very finicky. Like you have to be very particular.
Well, they're their own species.
Yes, and you have to understand them and what makes them grow the best. And with animals, I'm sure there's a whole nother fold to that, as far as.
Oh yeah.
And
what we try to do is we try to incorporate the animals in with the farm, or with the production of the vegetables. So like where we're going to be planting garlic next fall, we got to open up a big swath, because garlic is something that we can grow and store and sell throughout the duration of all of 2022.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a big swath of garlic, but where the biggest weed that we struggle to get rid of is grass. Pigs happen to love eating grass roots. It's got a high sugar content, so they get in there, they root everything up good and deep, so the soil will be good and nice and loose. They're going to eat all the grass roots. So as soon as the pigs are gone, we're going to go through and throw a bunch of compost on there, till it down once more time, and then we're going to plant garlic, and away we go.
I heard about a garlic there's a large variety of garlic that apparently the one clove off the garlic overall plant is like the size of a normal garlic.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh yeah.
A friend of ours actually brought that up, but yeah, it'd be cool to do, because honestly, garlic is such a sought after,
it is
material. So I could see that being pretty lucrative. I already told you we're definitely, willing to come out and help you guys. So
very, very soon.
Count us in.
I'll let you know. Not this weekend, but the next weekend. Emily's going to be out in, where is she going this time on her vacation? I think New Jersey.
Yes, right. That's why we pushed back the LPDC meeting to the 27th.
That's right. But that weekend, I'm going to be wifeless. Probably going to have my kid, so he's going to be hating that weekend because he's going to have to work some hours.
Hey, we'll bring our kids out. He can hang out. Honestly, I think him and Addison would get along pretty well, so.
Probably. He's a pretty laid-back kid. There's not a whole lot of. He's like me. There's not a whole lot of people he doesn't get along with.
Yeah, right. That's awesome.
Yeah. But we've got fields that got to get cleaned up, and we've got the tomatoes are going here in the germination chamber right now. This weekend, we've got about 2,500 seeds that we got to get planted for the transplant program. That's going to be stellar again this year. That's been a mainstay since day one. We've done really, really well with the transplants. And it's so awesome to see so many people come out here and and what's really cool is now that we're a couple of years into this, we get the same people that come back every single year, and we get to hear about how our plants did.
Right.
And how excited they get about our plants.
Yeah.
That to me is worth every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears we put into this. It's really awesome to hear.
I'm super excited to take advantage of this, because in the past, like I said, when we were out in the woods, we were a little bit more avid about it. But now that we're in town, we're more like hobby gardeners about it. But we go to Walmart to pick up some plants, or to the local. I would much rather go to a farm that that is growing these plants and has success with these plants. I would 1,000 times much rather that. So I wish I would have known sooner, honestly, before this year that this was even happening, because
and that's kind of the biggest downfall, even with the campaign, is just getting your name out there to know that you exist. So all of our transplants are actually organic. We spend the money to buy the organic seed starter through Purple Cow Organics. All of our seeds come through High Mowing Organics, and so nobody really markets any of their plants as being full-fledged organic.
Right.
And we don't have a special markup on them for being organic, but people ask if we have a certification. We don't have a certification.
You shouldn't need one.
I can show you my receipt where I purchased the seeds.
Right.
And you can see the great big bag of seed starter here that has a big purple cow on the side of it. There's not a whole lot that goes to it. It's a seed and the seed starter. So
exactly,
more than willing to show you, because you can actually, if you're advertising as being organic and not being certified organic, you're fined $10,000 every single time you use that word.
Yep.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
And quite honestly, too, what we've discovered through our research is that many of the people that even go through the process to get that certification still don't have what you would consider 100% organic food. You know, like there at some point is a lot of chemicals that get introduced. And what we've discovered too, because of pollinators like bees
and wind travel,
you actually can't 100,000% guarantee that your plant is organic.
Nope. So
you can do everything in your power.
Yeah, and you get ridiculously fined just by saying it.
What I tell people is if you ever have any questions, come out to the farm.
Yes, see it firsthand.
Everybody to come out to the farm. One of the main reasons we started to do this is we do have a health problem in the United States of America. Okay?
Yes, we do.
70% of Americans are overweight, and 42% or 42 or 45% are obese, and 23% are morbidly obese.
Yeah, which is just sad.
Staggering numbers.
It is.
But when we have corn in every single thing that we eat, guess what's going to happen? The same thing that happens to the cows.
Exactly.
The same thing that happens to the pigs.
Like
that's what those, when you go down to like Colorado and you go to the big, the cattle markets and stuff like that, that's what they do for the cows. They corn is like, it makes them not necessarily fatty, but it builds their muscles really fast. So that's what they do when they call it finishing a cow. So when they're finishing a cow, they trim back all the hay. They're not feeding it primarily grass. They're feeding it piles and piles of corn. But if you feed a cow too much corn, it actually causes a disease called acidosis. Once the cow gets acidosis, that's when they ship it off to the butcher. Yeah. And that's what we eat.
Yeah.
So that's not
so sickening. I know, and that's just one example of the detriment of industrial farming.
So we focus really hard at we're not just growing produce, we're not just getting plants started up. We want to be able to reconnect people with how your food is produced.
Yes. And raised
locally. So I mean, we have honeybees, we have the pigs, we're going to eventually have the cows, we want to get a trout pond, we want to have an orchard, the nut trees. We want to build an entire ecosystem here that is self-sufficient and because when you start building ecosystems, the ecosystems kind of self-feed and start taking care of each other.
Yes, they do.
So we're working on not just building a farm, we're working on building an ecosystem so that we can continue to produce effectively throughout time, really.
Right. And serve your community and feed your community in the process.
Exactly.
How many acres do you guys have out there?
We got a full 40.
That's awesome.
Full 40.
Hey, we can camp on Jake's land and then we can help him in the farm.
Oh, got a perfect spot for you. Right up against the, oh yeah.
That's awesome.
We've,
well, how else are we going to get our kids up at 4 o'clock in the morning to cut lettuce and shit?
My youngest son, every time he comes here for the weekend, I tell him if he doesn't behave, he's going to have to sleep with the goats.
Yeah, right. Honestly, that wouldn't be a threat to our daughter. Just saying.
Yeah.
Can I sleep with the goats?
Please, really?
Can I sleep with the goats?
Yeah, is that possible? You know, like I'll sleep out there. So you've kind of given us a really great.
One more in there.
You've given us a really great look at, you know, like your background and what you're doing right now with your life and your family. How does this all translate into your run for your congressional, appeal here? How do you translate farmer, family man into I'm going to Congress?
Well, it kind of all started out. My wife told me if I wasn't going to do something about it, stop bitching. That's really what kind of was the foot in the ass. And it's at a point in time right now, we need everybody to stand.
You're right.
Yes.
And one of the motto that we had when I was in basic training was, I am the infantry, follow me. And that's important on its face, and also the additional implications with that is, as an infantryman, you lead by example.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm taking that from I am the infantry, follow me, to follow me to liberty.
Yes.
Right.
we're going to move forward with this. This is what this country needs, is freedoms and liberties. We need to go back to focusing on freeing up the people, because this is out of control. Our government's out of control. We don't have a voice. I was talking to a gentleman the other day. It's kind of a rags to riches story. He came here as an immigrant for political reasons, what was the term that he used? A political refugee, he said he was, and now he's running a successful business, but he hasn't become an official citizen yet. And he says he doesn't really want to become a citizen yet. And I said, out of curiosity, can I ask why? And he goes, I feel like I have a voice now, and you citizens don't.
Wow.
And that struck me really, really deep.
Wow.
Like, honestly, he wasn't wrong. I mean,
no.
When you really look at it, he was actually spot on, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And this was just last week, but how this all fits in is we need to understand that the elected officials that we have, first and foremost, they are supposed to be servants. We've elected them and expected them to be leaders, and there haven't been, and they know they will be. We need to have people within Congress that are normal, common, everyday folks that understand how the legislation that they are passing affects
the people,
95% of Americans, how it affects the common day person.
Yes.
So when they're up there, they've been up in office for 30, 40 years, they don't understand how the legislation that they're passing affects farmers. They don't understand how it is affecting the food service industry. They don't understand. They have no connection with common everyday Americans.
No.
I am a common everyday American.
Right. As you've explained.
I will be voting upon principles. You know, and I love the Libertarian Party and how open-minded the Libertarian Party is and how focused on freedom they are, because that is what this is going to bring this country together for. And it's the localized legislation. And when you start talking to individuals about all social issues that this country faces, and you be like, you know what, have you tried contacting your city council or your county board? Have you tried working with them? Oh, no, I have. Well, start there. If everybody take qualified immunity. Okay, I've talked to hundreds of people that want to end qualified immunity. Have you worked with your local sheriff and police chiefs and in your town board and city council? No. If everybody focused on doing that, guess what? It already become taken care of.
Yes,
exactly. Change real fast.
Yes, it
would.
But
instead, we're all arguing for the federal government to take care of it.
Yes, which we shouldn't have any part in.
The federal
shouldn't exist.
They can't even get you a freaking COVID relief package when we actually needed it. They got to wait till the pandemic's done.
Yep.
And
then pass something through that barely is a relief package at all. It's more like a wish list.
Gives any money to,
criticize states for opening up.
Yeah.
Right. On top of it.
The government needs crises in order to function. If there isn't a crisis, they don't feel
there's no reason for them to be there.
Exactly. I just wish they'd kind of just hang out there and party.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Hang out,
like they used to.
Serious happens.
Like they used to.
Have parties, have balls, talk with all the heads of states. If something serious happens, give us a call. We the people, we're here. Just don't touch don't break anything. Just don't touch it.
That's why we can't have nice things.
It's
honestly,
we have a government.
It's crazy because, like, during World War II, for instance, you had the Germans, the Nazis over here, rounding up Jewish people, putting them in concentration camps, invading half of Europe, making all these really aggressive moves. And the United States government did not have to ask people to step up and go to war against this evil tyranny. People were literally like, why aren't we going to war against this evil tyranny?
Yep.
And we, in a lot of sense, they had to use Pearl Harbor as an excuse. but they didn't really, because most of the Americans hated what was happening in Germany and what was happening out of there already. And right now we're having a very similar situation in China right now. They are literally enslaving, rounding up millions of Uyghur Muslims. They've got this huge genocide, like whole Holocaust 2.0 happening. Many Americans are aware of it and, you know, trying to get something done about it. But it's like the government doesn't give a crap. The government doesn't care. The government still plays ball with China. Right now you have the Biden administration saying how much we're going to work together with them. You know, like
that's how they took over Hong Kong. I mean,
exactly. And Hong Kong was, we were actually talking, Hong Kong was out there waving American flags, chanting American quotes, while Americans were desperately begging for communism.
It was down at the George Jorgensen rally down in Milwaukee, and I believe there was security. You guys were there too. And there was that immigrant from Venezuela.
Yes.
That got up in the question and answer portion.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. You want to
I'll always remember that. For the rest of my life, I'll remember that.
Oh, that I will never forget that. That touched my soul in a way that I will
Venezuela
never forget.
because of the socialist government, and came here to find everybody fighting for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was so flabbergasted. You Americans have no idea what you're saying right now. You have no idea how terrible this is going to get. The path that you are on right now is dangerous.
Yes.
This is very, very dangerous.
And we're not even doing it justice, because she was literally, you could hear the fear in her voice. Like, she was passionate about it.
Incredible.
She was so passionate. I was so grateful to be in the. I was so grateful to be there in that moment.
Yeah. that was literally. I wish I could remember her name, but that was something I will never ever forget. The fear in her voice.
Yes.
Because this is America. This is the last stand for freedom.
It is.
Yeah.
And Ronald Reagan said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. And I tell you, he's not wrong.
No, he's not.
We have the powers that be and the elitists within this country continue to whittle away and whittle away and whittle away. And I tell you what, it seems like every single piece of legislation that gets signed, we are one step closer to freedom and liberty being gone.
It's one more nail in the coffin. It really is.
Yeah.
And you said, you know, with he's saying, you know, we're always one generation away from freedom being lost forever. We're also like right on the precipice of this like huge thought experiment too. You know, they're really pushing people to have this fear response, and everything now is centered around fear. And, you know, that's how they're engaging everybody now. And, you know, the rest of the world is kind of looking to us. They're kind of waiting to see what America's move is. Are we going to fall? Are we going to go and just, this is it? That's it for the freedom of the world? That's the end? Or are we going to rise up and then the rest of the world will follow? Because that's kind of what's happened every step of American history. The moment that America rose up and said, no, wait, representative democracy is the way we should all go, then the rest of the world literally followed in the following century. It's literally was one domino after another.
Yep.
You know? And
I do think it's going to come back. I do think that the Americans are, you know, and I've been able to talk across aisles, mainly with Republicans, because there's just a lot more of them around this area than there are Democrats.
Right. That's just the area we live in.
That's the demographics of the political beliefs within this area are definitely more conservative than they are liberal.
Right.
But even when I get the opportunity to talk with Democrats, they're all agreeing with the same stuff that I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And when you start talking to them about their party specific, everybody is pissed with their elected officials.
Yes.
The Republicans are pissed with the Republican that are in office, and the Democrats are just as pissed with the Democrats that are in office as well.
Well, and nobody
seems to.
Go ahead.
Nobody seems to be happy with the path that's going on any political party.
No, and along with that, it's not even just the elected officials. A lot of these people are even very discontent with the political leaders in their parties. You know, like the Democratic Party has screwed over the far left wing time and time again. The heavy progressives at this point, I'm surprised they don't just break away and become their own party, because I can't imagine they feel any representation from the left whatsoever. And now you have the right completely splintered by the Trumpism that occurred. And now you have the establishment Republicans, the Trump Republicans, and then the true liberty conservatives that exist. And now it's like this whole weird dynamic. And there's no real certainty anymore. You know, there's no real fluid consistency between any of these mainstream parties. And here we are, the Libertarians, with the same message for 50 years consistently. We might squabble over the details, but the number one message has always been the same: liberty.
Period.
And that's why we squabble, because we have the liberty to squabble. We don't all have to. We don't all have to agree to groupthink. We don't all have to agree to the same things.
Exactly.
You know,
and it's such a beautiful thing, and it's. And people are so entrenched, they have their heels dug into this battle.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking to see that some people are simply not willing to even listen to any other side.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's so many times that I'll be talking with somebody and they will completely disagree with just one thing that I have to say.
Right.
But they'll still go and vote for a Republican when they only agree with what Republicans have to say. Like, you're not going to give the third party a shot. You agree on 90% of everything, but you're going to vote for the people that you only agree on 10% with.
Yep.
Well, you're not going to win.
That happened so often through the Joe Jorgensen campaign. People would literally agree with her on 95 to 97% of everything she said, but she would say one thing, and they would be like, okay, I'm voting for Trump instead. Even though he might have said 100 things that they don't agree with. You know, but just because she said one thing, you know, and that used to frustrate me entirely, but I do understand it. Like she just said, it's from this point of like team sports mentality. We got to be on the winning team, you know, and if we don't feel like we can be on the winning team, we're not voting for it.
And that I've actually
I
heard
tell
that
all of those people
vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And I tell all those people, I'm like, if I just had half a vote, just half of one vote, for every single time that I heard that we weren't going to win and that's why you won't vote Libertarian, we would have the House. We would have it all.
Yep.
Because of how many times I hear that. Even though I'm over here, I'm like, but if you just do it, if we all got together and we just do it, then we say bye-bye.
Although I saw a really funny pie graph, you know, that typical pie graph that shows like 33% is Republican that votes, 33% is Democrat that votes. You've got about 2 to 5% that's other third party independent. And then you've literally got about 30-40% of the entire country that doesn't vote at all. Somebody 52%. Actually like hilariously 52%. Said 52%. Somebody hilariously named them, and I agreed. It was like the first time I ever really thought of it this way. Those are the anarchists.
I saw that same one. Yeah, I said it was like 34% voted for Biden, 33% for
Trump.
I saw that same exact one. And the right-hand side was black. It said 52 anarchists that didn't vote at all.
Yeah. Yep. And, you know, it puts a whole new perspective to what anarchy means. It's like, screw this. That's what anarchy means. It means I don't like what this is. I don't agree to it. That's
really what it's going to start coming down to. And you're starting to see a lot of states stepping up, especially with this coronavirus. Yep. A lot of states are stepping up and saying, you know what? We're not even listening anymore.
Yep.
And it's breathtaking. And the fact that the CDC has actually lost a tremendous amount of
credibility.
Sorry. I'm a little tired, so I lost that word.
You're good.
I mean, that happened for me like 10 years ago, but
it's good to see the mainstream catching up, though, because the CDC, like many other government organizations, is extremely biased.
Yes.
You know,
well, they've got right on their website, it says directly from the CDC website, it says if you've been vaccinated and you've come in contact with someone with COVID that has been COVID, who is currently COVID positive, you don't need to quarantine because the vaccine works. Okay. So if you don't have to quarantine after the vaccine, you don't have to quarantine when you come into somebody who's been COVID positive. Why do we have all of these restrictions still?
Right.
Okay, so literally all the guidelines you guys just put out contradict themselves.
Well, yes, because states are having a really hard time getting vaccines, so it's taking a while. And it isn't going to be until every state reports back, every county, every city, every little village, everybody gets the vaccine, and then they'll be like, okay, we can take them off now.
Well, yeah, and I just saw too, like old people can now hug their grandchildren, and now they're saying, you know, like that's just ridiculous. And now the CDC came out and said, well, in order for July 4th celebrations, we're going to need to be at a certain vaccination percentage. And
yeah,
it's
here
not
we
gonna
go.
happen. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. And I called this last December. Okay, but basically we're starting to ramp up on our last spike here for COVID cases and stuff like that. I said Joe Biden's going to come in. Okay, we're already vaccinating 1 million people a day at that point in time. Joe Biden's going to come in. He's going to pass a bunch of legislation as the spike is starting to come down already. And then we're going to go right into springtime, and Joe Biden's going to go, poof, look what I did. I solved COVID.
Yep.
In just a couple months. That's all it took.
Just a couple of months. Why couldn't Donald Trump do this?
Yeah, it was easy.
And he's got the social media.
The mainstream media.
The mainstream media is just toting him along.
He hasn't even still made a press conference.
This has been the longest any president has waited in over 100 years.
Honestly,
over 100 years.
My conspiracy brain started immediately thinking, is that guy even still alive?
I really think that he is. I think he's actually taken a turn for the worse. And my theory on this whole thing is they want Joe Biden to be there for at least until through 2022.
Right.
So if something happens to Joe Biden within these first 2 years, Kamala Harris can only run one time as president.
Right.
If it's in the last 2 years of his presidency, Kamala Harris can run 2 more times as president.
And get what,
and
10 years?
Technically 3 terms.
10 years.
10 total years.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be 2.5.
10 total years. Now, if they start tacking on extra states, now imagine if they start tacking on extra states. If they add on 3 more states.
Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico. What else would they do? Probably split another state in half.
What was the other
Would they
one?
still make? Would they officially make
California.
New York? Would they officially make New York its own state?
No, New
City?
York's never tried splitting up, but California has tried splitting up, where the north and south of California want to split apart.
Yeah, because of all the big cities down there. Because most of California is dairy. Actually, there's more dairy products that come out of California than it is Wisconsin now.
Northern and Eastern California.
Happy cows still come from Wisconsin.
Northern and Eastern California are extremely conservative, whereas the coast of California is very liberal. Which is why they
imagine living in California with all those regulations out there, all the farmers around.
I couldn't imagine if you lived in the north. If you lived in the northern part of California, I couldn't even imagine it, because you would literally hate your state. You would hate your home all the time.
There is a pretty heavy exodus of businesses that are leaving
to Texas.
I mean, the whole Daily Wirecast and stuff which is they're kind of peanuts in the whole big scheme. But Tesla's pulling out of there.
Yep.
Rogan
Rogan.
Yep. Joe Rogan pulled out of there. And that's the importance of localized legislation, because you shouldn't have to leave your entire state. If all your legislation was, and that's how I kind of try to portray this to people, is okay. When we have, there was one individual who came to talk to me, and he goes, well, I'm a full-fledged socialist. I said, well, it's great. Sure, me too. As long as it's at the local level, I'll be socialist with you.
Right.
That's how we get, police departments and garbage services, water treatment facilities.
Right. Well, and the whole thing is we just had a great conversation with Larry Sharp, and Larry Sharp pointed out in cities, you're going to be left-leaning because you're going to need more of those social desired things, programs, because there's so much more people. I mean, he was talking about how 4 million people a million people a day use the transit system. The transit system in New York City, like 1 million a day. I was like, so when you're in cities, you're more left-leaning anyways, because it's more social. There's more people. Yep. When you're in your rural country areas, you're more Republican, conservative, more, like hands-on, like
self-sufficient.
Yeah, so that's why a libertarian government takes care, a libertarian federal head takes care of the local minority, like subcultures, really, the local subcultures.
Yep. And that's why there's a lot of times people think that if you're a libertarian or if you're a Republican or Democrat, that you have to be that at every layer of government.
Yeah.
You can have different views at different layers of government.
Exactly.
So, I mean, for me, I'm full-fledged libertarian at the federal level. And now when it comes to like state level stuff, I'm probably a little more closer to Republican, favoring businesses, but Republicans at the state of Wisconsin aren't entirely that. They're still pretty authoritarian. But down at this county level, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we can really do. I mean, think of just the fact internet access. That's huge. I mean, there's plenty of studies that have done to show that internet access to children, how it affects their development overall, is absolutely detrimental.
Right.
So why are we not, as localities, working on getting internet set up? It's not that hard. Okay, we had internet set up. We had like 6 or 7 guys that set up internet on our fob in Iraq. So it's possible.
Yeah,
it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we can do a lot of social stuff as long as it's done within the localities, and the localities are the best to serve it. So
where it's held accountable.
Where it's held accountable. If our local politicians are wadding stuff up and we need to fix that, guess what? I can go knock on their door and have a conversation.
Yes.
Exactly.
I say this all the time. In the past, when things are more localized, the reason why tar and feathering was a thing was because you literally would go to your local politician's house, pull them out of their living room, rub them in tar, put them full of feathers, and embarrass them down the middle of your downtown.
Yes.
You know, and then
that should be happening more often.
And then they would never do that terrible thing again because they wouldn't want that to happen.
and that's what it's so difficult, and that's what ends up happening. And I tried to. So there's a lot of with some of the individuals I've been working with, they're still really, really strong on this Republican side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you have to understand. I said, any Republican that ever on the congressional side, as soon as they get to Washington D.C., they're in the
pockets.
Because
it's all about money to them.
It's all about the money, and it's all about the game, and it's all about party politics.
And
I always say too, I'm like, what's changed? What's changed?
Exactly.
It's been almost 200 years of flip-flopping back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, and literally nothing has changed. It's only increasingly gotten worse. So what makes you think this Republican's going to do it or this Democrat's going to do it? Mm-hmm. Come on. You haven't even actually given libertarianism a chance. You haven't given liberty, freedom.
Not on the federal level.
Exactly.
No. Yeah, no. Yeah. On the local level, there's a lot of libertarians making change. Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah. We're going to get there. We're going to get there, though.
Yes, we will.
That's the exciting part. And I'm telling you right now, I may just be the tip of the spear, but tell you, follow me.
Yeah.
Follow me.
Well, I mean, we are the golden ticket in 2022. So
it's true. Yeah,
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, it is going to be awesome.
I'm so excited for that. We got a couple of the other districts I want to get filled up with some libertarian seats, but I actually just reached out to the individual that's running in the district on the other side of the bay. Is a guy named Elijah Banky.
Okay.
He's running as a Republican, so I'm hoping he's actually stopping out Saturday at the Steel Moose.
Okay.
So I specifically sent him an invite. So I'm hoping to touch base and shake that man's hand, and maybe we'll
have a conversation.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
But
well, that's the thing too. Also, you know, we got to form those coalitions. We really do, because I think a lot of these people have the right mindset. They just have bought onto the wrong ticket.
And that's what it is. And no matter what it is, if you're a Republican, half the country's not going to talk to you. And if you're a Democrat, half the country's not going to talk to you.
Yep.
If you're a Libertarian, everyone will talk to you.
Everybody does.
Because we're willing to talk to you. Because we're willing to listen. You know, that's the one thing that separates us.
And we're willing to come to conclusions. We're willing to move forward on stuff.
We're
willing to work towards liberty.
Yes.
And that's not going to happen. Every time I've ever tried to watch C-SPAN, they're always fighting over the party. The party is the party, the party, the party.
Well, the Republicans, well, the Democrats.
Well, and that's the one thing.
Let them win.
As libertarians, we care at the very essential core of everything, it's about mutual respect for each other's freedom to just be ourselves. With the Republicans, it's like, oh, well, we respect your freedom to be fiscally conservative, but how dare you have control over your own body?
Right.
And with liberals, it's like, well, we respect your right to do whatever you want with your own body, but how dare you have control over your own money? You know, and with libertarians, it's like, how about you just live how you want?
Yeah. Ta-da!
As long as you're not hurting anybody else in the process, go right ahead.
Do your thing.
Just do your thing.
Be prosperous. Love life. Live life. It's the real.
Go forth and multiply. You know.
Exactly. And here we are.
And
you know, it was.
Here we are.
It's very exciting to be a part of this. It's very exciting to see how many other people are getting excited about it.
Yes.
When I hand people especially Wisconsin, and from my understanding, Wisconsin already votes 10% Libertarian.
Sure.
So I mean, just the fact that my name's on the ballot, I already got 10% of the vote. So I mean, if it's a three-way race, Mike Gallagher's not going to win.
Oh God,
it's either going to be.
I wanted to actually bring up to you. You've been seeing the Ron Johnson debacle, right?
I haven't, no.
So Ron Johnson right now is being absolutely crucified because of his involvement with Trump. So like Ron Johnson's already announced he has absolutely zero intention of running in 2022. He's going to walk away from all politics.
I knew he was getting ready to retire, and he only wanted to do the 2 terms.
Yep.
But he also made the statement that he would not step down unless he found a suitable successor. And I was under the impression that Gallagher was going to jump on that Senate seat.
Right.
But I also heard when Trump was down in that CCAP, that conservative or CPAC or whatever it was called down in Florida there, he made it very known he was going to throw his name and weight behind any candidate whatsoever that was running against Mike Gallagher or Ron Johnson.
Right.
Or any Republican that turned their back on Donald Trump. But that's right back to this whole party fight.
Yep.
Stop it.
Yep.
This isn't doing anything
fighting
whatsoever
just to
for the country.
Well, yeah, and honestly,
it's fighting just to fight.
For any libertarians,
it's not fighting for liberty.
No, it isn't. And for any libertarians that might be watching, that's actually great advice to follow for our own party. We should not go the way that a lot of these other parties go, where there's this like, you have to follow the party line or else you are ostracized and you're not good enough. And like, we have to be inclusive of the people that don't agree with us 100%, because that's what libertarianism is actually about.
Exactly.
You know,
I was going to say, that's the beautiful thing about being a libertarian, is that you're different and you accept other people being different too.
Absolutely.
That came up when I did the podcast with Badger State Resistance last night. Monday that we did that, and it was a whole bunch of us sat down there, and not a lot of the people agreed with what I had to say. And I actually had to stop the conversation, and I was like, listen, I said, I'm running for it to be your congressman. I said, we can sit here and talk all night long about what my beliefs are. I said, but the main staple of the Libertarian Party is principle over party.
Yes.
So no matter what, I have to vote upon your voice. That's my responsibility, is to vote on what my constituents want me to vote. Whether I disagree with them or agree with them, I'm supposed to be their voice. And I'm going to err on the side of liberty every single time.
Yes.
It's really that simple.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's the thing too, obviously. If you had constituents, if the majority of your constituents were demanding that you take away the rights from somebody else, you would obviously not align with that. But that's what you're saying. Like, if your constituents are saying, I want the liberty to be able to live this way, then that's the side you're going to align with, you know?
Exactly. I'm not saying that if all my constituents want to, like in Germany, round up all the Jews and put them in
right,
that's
exactly.
Clearly not.
Or as something you've already been kind of criticized for, you wouldn't be telling people you wouldn't be putting in laws in place that make people put their phones down and shut their TVs off.
I won't be putting legislation in place for you to enjoy time with your family. No.
It's a mandatory 15 hours a week with your family. Jacob VandenPlas says, you heard it here first on Life and Liberty.
my first bill. Mandatory family time. Then again, you know what? Maybe that would help act.
You know what? You know,
if you're against it, maybe you need it the most.
Yeah, right.
Yep. Exactly. All right, we got our first T-shirts. There we go.
There you go. That's awesome.
If you're against it, maybe you need it the most.
I like that, actually. That's a good one.
Oh yeah, but
yeah. So I mean, we've covered a lot of things tonight. You know, we could probably talk for hours. We already do a lot of times anyway when we get together, Jake. But we can honestly, like I already told you, I want to have you on more often in the next 2 years. You know, maybe even like monthly. Have you on just to continue to keep up to date on the the issues that are happening here locally in our communities on the national level that you'd face in Congress, and to just give people need a better understanding of who you are. And I think doing an hour-long podcast like this gives a really good ability to kind of flush out somebody's character. Yeah. And like we didn't come in here with planned questions and like anything like that.
This was fun.
Yeah, it really is. It always is. So thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. We don't want to keep you too late because we know you got to get up early, but.
Oh, yeah. The roosters are going to be crowing early in the morning. I definitely appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. We've got, I think we've got like 8 roosters running around right now, too. So
that's awesome.
When they get going in the morning.
So I'm going to share this for people too, just so that everybody can see. Before you go tonight, everybody should go over to JakeLiberty2022.com. This is Jake's official website. You can follow along with his campaign. Everything is lined out here, folks. You want to know anything about Jake, it is right here. He's got a video and a Q&A session here. You can go through all the different things. Some of the things we talked about tonight, other things we didn't get around to talking about. Make sure you hit up the donate button here because it takes a grassroots effort of everybody chipping in $5, $10, $20, just anything you can help out because, we're doing a lot with just a little bit of money. So a little goes a long way.
A little bit really does go a long way. And we thank you, each and every one of you, for your donations. We truly can't do it without you. Sincerely.
Absolutely. Make sure you check back in through Jake's Facebook page if you're on Facebook. He does regular posts on there as well. Make sure you check out your farm. You want to plug your farm, Door County Farm LLC. Jake does a lot of things.
That up. Yep. We just made our first post of the season here for our transplant program. So we're going to start pushing the Door County Farm Facebook page here pretty hard. It's going to be an exciting year for us.
Here we go.
That's awesome. We're going to be a part of it too and help you out as well. Maybe help promote and market that as well because we need people to understand what you're doing because it's an amazing thing. Yes. It really is.
It's awesome.
Yes,
Thank you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for coming on and have a wonderful night, Jake.
You too. Thanks much. Have a good night.